Hey everyone, it's Brian Lee from Prairie Founders Club. This summer I had a chance to hang out with Ali Schwanke in Lincoln, Nebraska for the first in a series of episodes we did for Prairie Founders Club. Ali is the founder of Simple Strat, a HubSpot strategic partner, and one of the more inspiring entrepreneurs I've ever met. What you didn't see in the episode is we had a really great conversation where she goes into her origins, some of her inspirations, and she gives some really great advice to future founders. Since the recording of this video, Ali has gone on to sell the company and is on to her next entrepreneurial adventure. Simple Strat continues to thrive under the new leadership and will continue to serve clients nationwide to get the most out of HubSpot. I hope you get a lot out of this conversation. Let me know what you think. So take us back to the beginning. First of all, what were you doing before Simple Strat was around, and what skills did you gain that kind of set you up?
So my whole career has been in marketing one way or another. And I think that what I didn't realize was a lot of marketing success is in business principles, which is understanding the problems that you're solving and the people that you're solving them for. What are they willing to pay? And so it's all those kind of like the 4 Ps and all the things you learn in, business classes. But what I ended up doing is I'd worked for a couple companies where I feel like I excelled, but I kind of was up against like what's next every time. And, peers around me would say, you should have your own company. You should have your own company. And so I ended up being a consultant. I had Schwanke Marketing again. Wow. Really great name. But I was doing some work helping companies figure out their marketing, hire marketing staff, kind of their CMO for like fractional services. And then ultimately just ran into the need to build out teams to help execute on that, because execution is often the hardest part. So then in 2016, that's when I officially launched Simple Strat. And after that, again, knowing where you're going as a business is half of the here's where we want to go, and then half of listening to the market. And that's the rest of the story. What
were some of the biggest challenges that you faced when you in the early days of Simple Strat?
I don't think they were any different than any services business or any company, but a services business highly relies on your ability to find and convert leads. And a lot of people start with their network first. And so for us, really leaning into, like we like a lot of people when we started, like we hit the pandemic. And so a lot of people who had companies at that point, they either continued to try to press on, but a lot of people transformed. We did transform as a result of that time. And so the pandemic was a challenge. That's 2020. We're only like a 3.5-year-old company at that point. And we at the time had a team that was all local. And so we went all remote as a result of that. And the challenges initially were, who is our client? What are we selling? How are they getting value? How do we continue to sell services to them that are retained and predictable? So that was one. The other one is, who do we want to be? Do we want to be a local company? Do we want to be a national company? Do we want to eventually sell? Do we want to, all those questions determine what you do next. And you do what my friend Greg calls thrash around. You kind of thrash around for a little bit, and then eventually you find, kind of like middle school to high school, you go from ugly duckling to kind of figuring yourself out. And I think once we did that, we were able to really start hiring and scale is a word, but really come into who I think we are as a company.
Sure. I think in the pandemic made a lot of people rethink whether or not it's necessary to have a physical office, or how big of an office, or remote versus in person. What was your thought process going through that? And how do you think now that we're in 2025, people's attitudes have changed since 2020?
So the benefit of being in Lincoln, which is where I live, is that it is affordable to own and run a business here. From a pure tax perspective, from the types of the home that we're able to have and all the things like that, that's true in the Midwest. What's a concern is that no one wakes up on the East or West Coast typically and says, well, I'm going to work with a really innovative company based in Nebraska. So the thing that I realized when we went remote was that we were looking for really sophisticated, and maybe not sophisticated, but really innovative, good talent in the HubSpot ecosystem. And if you were to say, where should I find that? Nebraska's not going to be that place. Now, there's really great talent here in Nebraska, but if you're looking for a very specific sliver in that technology sector, when we opened up to hiring nationwide, that was when our eyes were really we just saw what was the difference when we were able to open to a nationwide talent pool, as opposed to having to look for someone that was willing to drive into Lincoln to work. You've always been very forward thinking. You're a leader on the national stage with YouTube and HubSpot.
But we both come from a region here in Nebraska that's always been about 10 or 20 years behind the times when it comes to technology, marketing techniques, software, et cetera. So how do you kind of grapple with that? It's one of the things we want to do at Prairie Founders Club is get people together who are interested in those things and strengthen that in the Midwest. But how do you approach that and think about that?
Well, one, I think you're right. I think it's about finding your tribe and finding people that understand and think like you. And there's a lot of times when you're ahead of the times and you can see things that other people don't see, you feel very misunderstood. And I think that's a thread through my whole life where the previous positions that I was in those companies had the founders or superiors that I worked for saw the vision that I did of where marketing was going.
Sure.
I don't know that I would ever have left.
Yeah.
But at the time it was, I remember like, no one's ever going to read what I write on the internet. No one's ever going to buy things off of YouTube, Right. So when I think about Prairie Founders Club and I think about the things that are important, I still have a business here. And so I run remote, but I have relationships in the community and I'm still very active with the larger ecosystem. I think people who run a remote company and think I don't need to be involved in my community and other entrepreneurs, that's the piece that I think is missed.
Yeah.
And there are business owners that also want to be more like that. They want to be more of the
Sure.
forward-thinking visionary people,
Yeah.
but they tend to be more practical operational thinkers. And so that we need both because I think there's an important conversation that has to happen there. So you don't have to be forward-thinking necessarily to be innovative, but you do have to have a larger conversation with the area that you're in.
You told me once that early on, you had a group of people that got together and that group kind of went on to do good things. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So one of the tenets of my, core values or beliefs is community and learning from other people. I think especially now we're at a time where you can Google the answer to anything, you can chat GPT your way through anything, but really knowing something is knowing what happens when the rubber hits the road. Just like that thought of like, you can come up with a battle plan, but once you hit the battlefield, it just changes.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are okay with kind of mitigating things and learning on their own. They're the I'm going to learn it on my own.
Yeah.
But the people that move faster learn from other people and what's
Sure.
working and what's not working.
Yeah.
And typically in business, you will find that the things that are working are the things that no one's talking about publicly yet.
Huh.
So when everyone's writing about it, that's when everyone
Yeah.
who's already early adopted it and gotten success is making that mainstream. Because if it's working for me, I'm not gonna talk about that. So some of the stuff we're doing to grow our business, you will not find that on YouTube right now. You won't. But I do believe that the ability for you to share that starts early in your career, whether you're an entrepreneur or not.
Yeah.
So this group was called the Big Thinkers. And so we shortened it and called ourselves the Bankers. And we were all at our stage in our career in our early 20s that we were trying to figure out what we wanted to be, but we knew that we needed community. And so we would meet once a month at the Scooters downtown, which is now a beer house. But we would meet there and we would discuss what our goals are. And we would just get together every month. And I remember the first meeting of the Bankers. I have an Evernote file with us and what we wanted to be. And all of us eventually achieved that it wasn't even like when are we going to do it? It just happened.
Sure.
Right? Because it becomes, top of mind.
What was the impetus for that? Like, who was the person that decided, like, let's do this?
Oh, goodness. I think one of the people so if I remember right, and maybe credit where it's credit's due, Steve Molly and I had met through, like, the Lincoln Young Professionals group.
Yeah.
And he and I had both had, lunch at a bar downtown talking about this idea. And then another gal that I was involved with, YPG, her name's Becky. And then there was Ryan, then we had Jessica. And so it just we got this little group together.
Yeah.
And we met for probably, and Mark, he has since built a company. He left his job at the bank, built a company, sold it, now lives in Australia and works for Amazon. It's crazy the path everyone took, but we all were committed to growth. And I think a lot of that now we're seeing kind of become part of everyone's like knowledge path.
I mean, once again, very forward thinking. They say that you are the product of the 5 or 10 people you hang around the most. And you made an intention early on to be around people that wanted to be forward thinking as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I really do believe now too is that a lot of the people that have the skills that you might need to acquire or the experience, a lot of those people are putting out videos, they're putting out podcasts, they have courses.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I believe people should do is anytime you can think about investing in something that has an ROI within a couple of months, you should do it. So if someone has a course and they want to put it out about, let's say, so one of my favorite people in the world is the duct tape marketing founder. John Jansen. He puts out the course. I followed him for years.
Yeah.
But I became part of his community and went through his CMO training. And as a result of that, we've developed a friendship. And now that has opened a whole different level of discussion. So you can sometimes get close to someone without, like, don't ask someone for advice when they have a ton of public information that you can take advantage of, because that's insulting. It's like trying to go behind the door, right?
I've always really admired your ability to network and to stay plugged in and to keep relationships up, not both nationally, but also locally. Like, you're very interested in local connections. Like, where did you learn that, and how did you learn the importance of that early on?
So one of the things that was probably very important early in my career is I worked for a man who was very locally connected, and I saw a lot of that happen in practice. And so that was one of the advantages of their firm, was that they had a lot of connections, and that's how they networked their way around. It was called the Center of Influence strategy. But my whole life has, like in college, when I would walk down the sidewalk before cell phones, everybody knew me. And so I think it was just this, like, I have an includer sort of personality. I think everybody has a story to tell. Yeah. But I'm the oldest of four, and so I think I was always surrounded by people and things, and I was always trying to find inspiration.
Oldest child, that's interesting. I am too. I wonder if there's something there as well. And you have systems now for keeping in touch with people. How did you develop those, and can you give us an idea of some of those systems?
Yeah, I think the thing that really drove me to think about systems for staying in touch and relationships was a lot of the thoughts around, like, the James Clear book, Habits. And so it's, you don't rise the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And so if you do not have a system in which you can stay on top of relationships, it just becomes this, well, when I have time, I'll get in touch with them. Right. And so I have, there's a couple of different methods, but people have taught various things over the years, but there's essentially a spreadsheet sort of model where people have very specific ties. And I keep track of what we last talked about, and I keep track of things that are important to them. I'm always running through my text messages, always running through my LinkedIn messages. And I think one of the most important things that is missed today is, especially with AI, is this human to human connection. So Brian, if I know you're, like, you have a beautiful back porch area, if I found the coolest plant, yes, there's a new petunia that you need to have on your porch. But if I saw that at a nursery, like a plant nursery, if I took a picture of it and I texted it to you and I was like, plant idea for your back porch. Yeah. You will now think about me as well as all of the other previous business conversations we have. I don't need to say anything about business. Sure. As long as we've established that you know what my business value is. And I think, especially in the Midwest, we're not naturally as social as maybe people on the coast or in Texas, for example. But I really admire that about you, and I think people here could learn a lot from that as well. Yeah, well, I think the thing is being interested in other people. That's the issue. I think people have so much more opportunity to create business and sales opportunities if they would just listen to the other person and listen for what they're not saying. So if someone is really active and then suddenly they kind of go under the radar, it's not, hey, what happened to you? Did you ghost on me? It's calling and going, hey, is everything okay? If not, let me know. I'll send over a bottle of wine. Like that sort of thing, assuming that you know what their favorite wine is. Those are very empathetic pieces that are so valuable. And I think they're so rare today because of all of the, like, it's all about business and it's about data. And if it's not on a spreadsheet, it doesn't matter. Right. You can't quantify that. So when did YouTube come into play versus when you started Simple Strat? The interesting thing about us is I believe video was core to our service delivery way back in 2016. In fact, we brought on a video marketer at the time, videographer. And the key thing at the time was companies didn't have video in-house. They didn't. None of the agencies in Lincoln had video in-house. And I just believed that it was going to be so important to the future of business development and marketing that you couldn't be contracting for $10,000 one-time videos. Like you had to have that talent in-house. Yeah. So we hired it in-house, and I think I sold one video. So Brian, I paid for this full-time role, and the market just wasn't ready to leverage video. YouTube wasn't as popular as it is now. People didn't know how to track it and drive leads, and people didn't want to be on camera. Like we didn't film everything in our life at that point the way we do now. Yeah. So we had this resource, and we decided that we better do something with this resource, otherwise it's not going to be worth it. So we started filming some videos that were like, what is marketing collateral, and how do you build a marketing funnel, and for lack of a better way to put it, they were good videos. they weren't really geared toward a target audience. We were just kind of creating things.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we stumbled upon HubSpot and we became HubSpot partners.
Yeah.
And we started creating not overly produced videos, just looms, which is like a screen recording video. And we put them up on YouTube just as a I wonder if anybody's going to find this. And sure enough, a month later, we actually discovered that there was a fair amount of search traffic for that. And the only other channel on YouTube at the time that was doing it was doing these long, verbose intros, story of my life, and then I'll teach you something. We were just like, there's a market for this. So that's really kind of where it all started.
So you didn't anticipate the level of success you would have on YouTube?
Here's the thing. I think we anticipated success, but the quote of you overestimate the thing you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 5 years, whatever. I think we at first thought, since we had garnered a lot of search traffic from these Loom videos, when we launched the official HubSpot Hacks channel, oh my God, we're going to kill it. We're going to be so good. And our first month we had 72 subscribers. And so, if anybody who announces anything with fanfare, 72 is not a number worth celebrating.
Sure.
But we did end up producing videos consistently for 6 months. And at that point, then I went in and re-optimized. We had some team changes and we re-optimized. And that's when we started, just like any marketing thing, you start looking at the data and you start pivoting based on the data. So when you first start, you don't have enough data to analyze and even make any decisions. They're all guesses. So once we started having enough data, then we started to double down and we started to say, what if we put some conversion points in here and start asking people to book calls? That's when we really started kind of making some different decisions with that.
Fantastic. So how long would you say until it got to where it was pretty much, running where you wanted it to run?
I mean, it's always a shift, even now as everyone's kind of waking up to YouTube as well. But I think it took about a year for us to really get our feet under us.
Yeah.
And some of that wasn't just creating videos. It was, okay, if someone's watching a video on YouTube, what is their mindset? What are they looking for? What's going to be that next step? How do we offer a conversion point that gets them to the next step?
Right.
And then once we get on those calls, what are they asking for?
Sure.
So ironically, at the time, we were not offering HubSpot services. We were offering inbound marketing services built on HubSpot.
Yeah.
And so when people started to say, do you do HubSpot consulting? After a while, I just got sick of saying no. And I said, yes. And so we just started saying 10 out, we'll help you with 10 hours in HubSpot.
Yeah.
So very much still an entrepreneurial, okay, we're going to start saying yes. And then again, Tyler's really great at operationalizing things. So he started building some services around that offering. And now we have a full suite of offerings that are there, and we no longer offer marketing services.
So that the feedback you got from the market kind of helped facilitate that shift.
It really did. Yeah. And I think it also was really dependent on the type of content we were creating. So we were showing you how to use HubSpot.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, our thought at the time was, we're going to use this content series to show companies how to make content series. And they didn't see that. What they saw was, you guys know HubSpot. Can you help our company with this?
Gotcha.
And so I think it was just one of those, if I would have been so bullish and we as a company would have been so bullish on, no, you have to work with us this way. No, we don't. But listen to this. But instead it was just, that's what you're asking for. Fine. I guess we're going to figure out how to serve that.
I can tell you're an avid reader because every time I talk to you, you have 2 or 3 books that you've read. Could you maybe point out to people that are interested, maybe a couple of people that influenced you, whether they wrote books or have podcasts or you heard a quote? I'd be fascinated to know.
It's interesting to think about who influences you from books, podcasts, videos, because I find myself saying, I'm not sure who said this because I'm sure that I'm the product of all of these things that I've read and someone said it somewhere.
Yeah.
But I do really enjoy a couple things at different points in my life. So one of the first blogs that I developed or that I started following in the early 2000s was Michael Hyatt. And he was a prolific blogger at the time. No one else was really doing what he was doing. He was a CEO of a publishing company. Tell me how many CEOs in 2005 were blogging.
Yeah, that's pretty early.
Even companies weren't blogging, let alone the CEOs blogging.
Right.
So he had a blog and then a podcast about productivity and life purpose. And it was just so life-changing for me to follow him. And I remember at the time I would clip, so Evernote had a clipper, I would clip all of his blog posts into Evernote.
Yeah.
And so that was really, paramount for me. I went to a couple conferences and I got introduced to Jim Collins and some of the Good to Great, and then the Heath brothers, Decisive and Switch and Made to Stick and all those psychological principles that teach you how people make decisions and interact. And that's so important. And then as, the further I got in my business career, reading more practical things about leading people and managing people. So I think there's a book called, I think it's Everybody's an Idiot or something like that, where it's, understanding that you are only as good as your interpretation of the people that are around you.
Fascinating.
So those books are huge. I am addicted to podcasts. I watch videos. Like, I just consume so much information, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm always thinking about it, like sitting outside, going for a walk, running, and it's always kind of processing. And then I'm always trying to talk to someone about it. Because I think it's the nurse method where it's like, watch, demonstrate, teach.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of sticks when
Absolutely.
you do that.
I'm a sports guy. You mentioned Nick Saban lately. You've been kind of reading some of his stuff. What are some takeaways you've gotten from Nick Saban?
So sports is one of my favorite places in addition to plants. So sports and plants are probably the two places. Sports, plants, and then my kids.
Well.
A lot of my analogies. But sports is a very fascinating thing for me because especially when you're looking at sports like NFL or college sports, the coaches can't get on the field. Like, they can get on the field to coach, but they can't play.
Sure.
And I think when you look at especially business owners that tend to jump in and try to fix things, they jump in and do. So imagine if you're a football coach and instead of trying to coach your quarterback, you just jump in the game and try to play for him.
Right.
And that's been a tendency that I had in my career. Just, okay, I'm helping you out. I'm just going to jump in. And when I started studying really great teams and really good coaches, you realize that like John Cook for the Huskers, when he's coaching, he has to understand how to motivate his players. But he also has to have the best recruiting possible so he has the best people on the court.
Sure.
And so these things, like, to someone who's in leadership, they're going, duh, this makes sense. But when I read about Nick Saban, the thing that shocked me is when the athletic director went to get him to Alabama, Nick Saban turned me down. Turned me down several times to the point where the athletic director went to Nick Saban's house and sat outside the house for a whole day in his car, stalker, in his car, to get the courage to go in and even talk to his wife. And she was the one that kind of said, okay, let's, but he took a risk. He had he got on a plane and went there without a meeting. And I think so many times today, it's like, oh, don't do that. You don't have a meeting. It's not, it's not on a spreadsheet. It's not in the CRM, but like, I just know that it's the right thing to do. So that was part one of the story. Part two of the story was when they finally made that decision and he painted the picture of Nick Saban coming on. He says, Nick, how does it feel to be the most valuable college coach right now or most in demand college coach? And Nick Saban says, I don't know about being a coach, but I'm a hell of a recruiter. And that that shift to me is something that really, I'm still working on it because it means I am not the player of the game. I'm not. I have to be the coach and the recruiter.
Sure.
And so that's what's doubled down my networking and reaching out and saying, hey, I'm not sure where you're going in your career, but I'd love to tell you what we're building here. And so that's really been a big thing for me in the last year. But any book that has anything to do with Nick Saban's coaching style, I probably have read it or it's on my shelf.
I think that's really fascinating. I'm very similar where there's a lot of things I'm good at, but doesn't mean I should do.
Exactly.
How did you evolve with that? Or did you do a lot of things yourself at the beginning and you had to change? Or how do you handle that?
Definitely type A. So, bring it on. I'm going to do just more. I'm just going to work harder. And a lot of it's been, kind of self-awareness, realizing that I'm not the best person to do these things just because I can.
Yeah.
Even cleaning my own house. I can clean my house. I do, daily, but once every 2 weeks, we have someone come and clean because it's just not a good use of my time. The thing about stepping in and doing the work is sometimes I think we assume that we need to do it because they're not getting it. So the question is it our systems or is it the person? And so now my first question is, before I say it's the person, let me examine the systems. So we're doing a lot of that right now within our companies and making sure we examine the systems. I go into clients and think that, is it the person isn't really a great salesperson or are there systems setting them up for failure? Because really good, talented people can sometimes buck a system. Yeah. But they're so rare. We should not be optimizing for that. We should be optimizing for the middle of that bell curve. The other thing to think about for me is there's been a lot of exercises that I've been in groups where they say, write down everything you did today and then go back and say, what should you not do again? And so then what do you need to do to make that possible so you don't do that again? So those exercises I think are really important. I talked about that on in a blog that I wrote last week too.
That's a good segue, people and systems. So starting with you personally, I can tell you're very organized. Number one, just by our communications together. Number two, walking into your house, I can just tell. What have you done to always improve and to be organized with both, organization and time management?
One of the benefits that I truly believe it's a benefit and just a circumstance that a lot of people have is I worked for a leadership development firm as one of my first jobs is in marketing for them. And I was exposed and got access to their personal leadership programs. And they had a program called Effective Personal Productivity that I went through. And I learned at that time that a lot of those systems are things that you don't learn this in college. You don't learn how to kind of set goals. Like, we talk a lot about them and we talk a lot about being SMART goals. But the average, I'll say, content and teaching about those things are set goals, set daily things, report on them, track your streaks. They don't really help you figure out how to align all that. Okay. So that started with, I think, those experiences. So habits like every quarter, like it's April as we record this, every quarter, write everything that you accomplished this last quarter, write everything that you learned, go through that. But I, on a daily basis, sit down and go, what are my accomplishments? What did I learn? What would I do differently today? How did I have like health and fitness as the category. I have miscellaneous items, and I have new people that I met as one of the things that I have on the list too. And that's in Notion. So if I go back to my Notion notes from last year at this time, I could tell you what happened on that day.
Yeah. So you obviously schedule that into your day every day, or do you just do that like naturally?
At the end. Yeah, at the end of the evening. Or like as I'm in bed, because I was on my phone.
How much of your day is scripted, like you've planned it the day before, and how much do you have to be adaptable and you're moving?
Probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there's an area of my life that is much more predictable, this is shocking, but it's probably my family. Because I think, there's that line in the My Big Fat Greek Wedding where she says, the man leads the house, but the woman turns the head, or the man, has the head. My husband and I are a really great team, but I have all of that type A organizational skills. He has the fun spontaneity, which is fantastic.
Nice.
But then I end up being like, okay, we have to leave at this time to be here, and that kind of thing. So,
what about organizationally, systems? That's especially for us, I think for all companies, it's a challenge. It sounds simple to write down processes, but it's the thing that gets put off immediately, and it's hard. What do you do to keep systems, standard operating procedures, et cetera, in place, and how do you maintain them?
Yeah, well, a lot of this credit goes to my business partner. So Tyler is a really great systems thinker. And so he, as we developed our HubSpot services, here's how we do our onboarding. Here's how this is reported on. So a lot of the credit for how we deliver those services goes to him for sure. Yeah. For a lot of the marketing things we do, that's where a lot of my systems thinking comes in. So even for myself, report a podcast. And so here's where it goes. Here's what happens. Here's the GPT we built to tear that down and repurpose that. And so all of that's then documented and referred. And I think we've got a long way to go for any company of our size. But I'm shocked when a lot of employees will say, you have more systems here than in my previous company.
Fascinating. What are your personal strengths and weaknesses? And then how do you counteract some of that with a partner or with other people around you?
So if anybody uses one word to describe me, it's usually driven. I don't even have to prompt that. I say, what's one word to describe Ali Schwanke? They say driven. Yeah. And I think driven and smart and probably, people, person are probably the three that come to pass. But those tend to be really good strengths. I can bulldoze my way through things. I tend to have a very good, let's just shut everything out and let's just focus on what we need to. Yeah. We've had times when early in the company, we needed to make sure we sold things. So how am I going to sell things this month when stuff's not coming in? Yeah. But I think that equally creates a downfall, which is I struggle to slow down. I struggle to, the idea of me sitting outside and doing nothing for an hour is that almost creates anxiety for me because I could be doing something else. Right. And I know that that's a thing that is rubbing on that, between my husband and I, he could watch sports all day on a Saturday and I'm over here with my list of all the things that I need to get done. Wow. So the people that tend to balance me are ones that, they bring that spontaneity and kind of joy that maybe I miss out on when I'm so driven. The other part of that too is there's just things in life that I think I would miss if I didn't look away from my list. Because everything always has to be done. Sure.
Well, what are your limits? Do you ever burn out and say, I just can't work anymore, I'm taking a break? Or do you feel like you can just keep going until you go to sleep?
So if I keep going, here's the issue, is I never get to the work that will change the next phase of the company, the next phase of my life. So if I just work on kind of executing and crossing those things off, it's, if I look at my calendar and I say, next Friday, I'm going to block off the whole day to work on goal planning. There's this part of me that's like, oh my God, a whole day?
Sure.
What are you going to tell your team that you did today? Because all day you just did like one thing and there's nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, and I don't know about other people who move from more of a doer to that kind of business owner role, I'm still highly involved in a lot of delivery. So that's changing.
Yeah.
But when you don't have an output at the end of the day that you can hand in like a homework thing, my brain just kind of doesn't know what to do with that.
Sure.
So I'm still working on that, but that is my weakness, and that is one of the things that is intentional with me this year is you need to not have your, like, you can't be pinged with messages. You can't be pinged with Slacks when you're trying to do innovative, deep work.
Yeah.
So Cal Newport has a new book called, I think it's called Digital Minimalism. And I took a lot of that away from him.
How do you maintain that level of energy? Are you like getting exactly 8 hours of sleep a night? Are you on supplements? Are you working out 10 hours a day?
This is definitely been a question. Like my whole career, I think everybody has been like, how the heck do you stay this energetic?
Yeah.
I am very energetic when I am living in an area of my strengths. You know, I lose energy if I have to do things that go counterproductive to the things that I'm naturally designed to do.
Sure.
So, but I am very energetic. I do like to be outside. I do like to run. Yeah. And I think that it's just part of who I am. My grandma's 90 something and she is a, just busy bee.
Yeah.
I think I'm just like her.
What would be some advice in two different scenarios? One for someone that's just starting a business, doesn't have a lot of money, is by themselves, questions about like, where do I invest my time and resources? And then maybe something for someone that's had a business running, doing pretty well, is kind of trying to go to the next level.
So I'll share from my frame of reference because we're in a services industry, which is different than a product industry where you need maybe investment to come up with materials and things like that.
Yeah.
So based on my experience and people around me who have started or left something, the understanding of what pain you're solving is so important. Just because someone says they're going to hire you for some consulting work doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur necessarily. It means that you can deliver a service in exchange for value. But it means that when you do leave your job to pursue that full time, you now are the service delivery, you're now the accountant, you're now the banker. Like you are not just becoming a business owner of that solo deliverable. You've now taken all the roles that you currently don't work in. Sure. And that's, I think, the biggest observation because I've noticed that I wrote a blog about this shortly after, probably 2 or 3 years after Simple Strat was in business, that the question every entrepreneur hates, and it is, are you still doing that thing, Brian? Are you still doing that thing? Because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but they know that it's hard. Yeah. So they're hoping that when you went on your own, that it only lasted for a year and you gave up because then it makes them feel better about them not doing it.
Fascinating.
So if you are looking to start a business or if you're just starting out, don't confuse referrals and network with a sales engine because that's really the challenge is you realize that people hire you for a variety of things because they trust you, Brian. They don't necessarily have a pain that they went looking for a solution and you happen to be in that camp. And
then how about someone that's got a business and is growing, in terms of operationally, what are some things that business owners are missing on that they could be more efficient when they're growing?
Growing is hard because it depends on how you're growing. So there's a variety of things. And I think this is one of the things that people struggle with is, how do I grow? What should I do next? And so there's, should you introduce new products to your current customers? Yeah. Should you continue to serve your current set of customers and expand geographically? Should you, are you missing, let's say that your sales pipeline is full, but your closing rate is low. So I think it's really doing a diagnostic of where those growth opportunities are instead of just, we tend to want to grow in the areas that we naturally have experience in. So I'll give you an example. So at Simple Strat, instead of we're adding in a sales role, we've never had a true sales role at Simple Strat. We're adding that in this month. We always have answered what should we do? Let's just do more marketing. Okay, we're at a point of if you ever took science class or chemistry, if you titrate a solution, you reach a point of titration and no additional amount of dilution is going to change things. It's going to actually just sink to the bottom. You can over titrate your company by putting too much of a thing that's already working and you've reached the point of it doesn't do anything
saturation
else.
Level,
yeah. So I think that when you're looking to grow, you have to figure out where you can put that additional formula in and it will lead to, so you might need actually a different financing. You might need, again, all that's going to vary. And unfortunately, my answer to everything is it depends, but that's how I look at it.
Yeah, well, different levels you're at require maybe different strategies.
Correct.
This strategy will get to this level, but to get to the next one, you got to shift a little bit. I'd love for you to show me around some of the places that you've frequented coming up in the Haymarket and around downtown Lincoln. So would you mind giving us a little tour downtown?
Yeah, I'd love to. Business dinners, I'm a big fan of Laszlo's.
Big fan of Laszlo's?
Not so much, like the food's wonderful, but their service is they get your order and get your ticket within like 15 minutes.
Did you say specifically for business dinners? Because it's efficient,
so like you know that you're going to be back on time and you're not going like, when is the food coming and I got to go.
Sure. Yeah. What are some other ones?
I love the oven.
Oh, the oven.
Yeah, if I could eat at the oven, it just...
Well, you got to go to the cellar in the oven.
Yes, exactly, yes. I mentioned before that I am a person of energy, and so I also find it hard to work if you've had a big lunch.
Oh, sure.
And so I tend to, that's probably why I tend to eat light at home and then continue to work at home,
So we're in the rail yard, which is relatively new, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know. Tell us about the rail yard. What do you like about this place?
Yeah, things have changed a lot. When we were down here with our office, a lot of the stuff that's here it's not here anymore.
Yep.
But I think that with a lot of the Husker volleyball team doing really well, I think the cube that's right over here is a place where people come and watch those games, and they watch football too. It's just not quite as exciting because the outcome might not be there. But there's basketball tournaments, pickleball tournaments. Even with Company Cam over here, they host a lot of meetups and kind of after hour stuff. And so I think it's just, this is good energy. And now that it's like nice outside, I think it'll, it reminds people that this is a cool place at Lincoln. Most
people think about this for Husker games, the rail yard, but they may not know there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity. Obviously you've got Huddle, who's the biggest success story in Nebraska that you can see from here. Company Cam used to be in an office right here. It looks like they've moved to a bigger one down the street. Lots of cool stuff going on.
I think people think the Haymarket is, bars and restaurants, and by and large, the Haymarket, is that like maybe on the first level for a lot of people, but there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity going on down here, and if you're not in that scene, you just don't know about it, right? Well,
in other cities that have had big startup hubs, whether that be Silicon Valley or Austin, Texas, where I spend a lot of time, there's a lot more concentration of innovations and startups. Whereas in Omaha, it's a little more spread out. And here's just a little mini microcosm of that, where you've got maybe like an 8 or 10 block area where there's a lot of activity going on. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, if I talk to folks from Omaha, that's the biggest thing, is the density of the ability to have all of that activity sort of in one area, as opposed to spread out between the Old Market and maybe Blackstone and then West Omaha and all of that. It's just a bigger city, but I think that's a benefit of really being here in Lincoln, is having it all concentrated down here.
Yeah, so I'm really happy with that. You and I are both part of the content marketing wave, which I don't know where you put that, like 15-ish years ago or something. Since those days, what's different now, and is content still effective, or is it more effective than ever?
So back when, I think it was Bill Gates had said content is king. I think he was the first one to have said that.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that content was never important, but now, because of the way consumer behavior has changed, like I can't imagine buying a house when I wasn't able to look at the MLS listings. And I wasn't, I don't even want to go tour a house now that doesn't have a video of me walking through it, because I don't want to waste my time on something that is falsely advertised.
Yes.
And for me, this is where content currently is everyone's expectations are there. Tell me what I should know about the product. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. I shouldn't be surprised or find anything out. Surprises are actually not one of our, we used to love to be surprised. You can not surprise me with good things, but don't surprise me in the sales process.
Sure.
So content needs to play out those roles, but I think the average person now who's in a content marketing role is creating less, we'll call it top of funnel content, where it's like, what is marketing? What is HubSpot? They're asking questions like, how should HubSpot be used for a construction business?
Yes.
And so you want domain expertise in that content. And you can't write that without experience.
It's almost like back in the day, content put you above your competition.
Exactly.
Now, it's if you don't have content, you're behind your competition.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you don't have content, someone often asks a couple of questions. One, are you guys not big enough?
Sure.
Are you not doing well?
Right.
Are you hiding something?
For sure.
And so because we all have this, trust is at an all-time low. And so content, and especially content with human faces, because now the question is, did you really write this? Or did AI write this?
Right.
And so can I trust you? It all comes down to, can I trust you? And that is the reason why content exists. But now it's table stakes, and you have to take it a step further to go, I want to contextualize the content that I give you so that you don't have to sift through all the noise. And instead I personalize it, not with your first and last name, but with where you are in your journey.
A lot of our clients, when we talk about doing video, they don't necessarily want to be themselves in front of the camera. They're a little bit embarrassed by that. Can you build a case for doing that, or is that not necessarily an option that they should worry about?
I would question, what do they think is the problem about being themselves?
Sure.
Is it, if it happens to be, well, I'm not professional enough, or I'm a little too rough around the edges.
Yeah.
There's things you probably shouldn't do on camera, for sure.
Right.
But I think that the way someone connects with you, so if you, let's say, I know you're working with some fencing companies, if they're installing a fence and they want to talk about the features of some sort of pre-treated wood or something to that effect, you would actually show them installing the wood, and then you'd say, hey, can you just tell me about that fence? And you literally just stop and say, well, actually, if you look at this, and it's up to the camera crew to figure out the angles and the things, and they shouldn't have to feel like being a newscaster.
Yeah.
Just tell me what you're doing.
Sure.
And that's good. Content creators know how to get that out of the people. If you're giving, if there's an assumption that's there that you have to break down, it's that, listen, you're not Katie Couric, and I know that. Yeah. So how do I help you feel comfortable just doing what you would do in your normal job while recording it? Yeah.
And I think people think they need to be perfect. They need to nail their takes. They need to memorize their lines. But really, doing all that kind of makes it less authentic anyways. But how would you calm someone's nerves about being in front of a camera?
Having done a lot of podcast episodes, and even today as we're recording this, if you start shooting before you're ready, and just always be shooting, eventually you get to a point where they forget the cameras are there.
Right.
And they can
Which is the ideal scenario.
And that's the goal. Yeah. But that's also why it takes time, because you can't just be like, all right, ready. There's no cut, that's acting.
Yeah.
Our clients that we're working with are probably not actors. And I'll even say this, my husband is fantastic. If you just get him talking, he's fantastic, and he's in sales. If you say ready, set, go, all of a sudden he gets camera face and it gets weird. Yeah, right. I've seen it happen. So if you just assume that we're going to have a sales conversation, I want you to tell me about this wood. Yeah. You're probably going to struggle the first time telling me about this pre-treated wood. Then I'm going to say, that's interesting. Tell me about why that's important. And that's where the conversation actually gets valuable. Okay, I know you're keeping all your secrets, your super secrets for yourself until the time is right. But give us something looking forward to in marketing. How is AI going to play into all this? And what do you see? What needs to be on our radar as business owners? I can't think of who said this, but I wrote this down on a piece of paper on my desk because I feel like this is the answer to that. And that is, it's less about what's changing in marketing and more about how consumers are going about finding the answers to the problems and questions that they're after.
Which is like the whole point of business in the first place.
That's the whole point.
Right.
And that is if you would have asked that back in 1970, the way that you went about that, you would talk to your customers, you would study their behavior, you would understand how they're doing things. If I had to say, based on my behavior now, how you wanted to sell marketing technology, so if it's a new AI software tool, for example, you're probably going to understand that I talk to my peers a lot. So peer recommendations are actually more important now than they ever were. Yes. But what happens is you recommend the tool to me. Yep. I go to the website, and because I trust you so much, I want to go ahead and get started.
You may not even shop around.
No, and so I may just go ahead. And so if you send me through this loop where I have to talk to sales and then do a demo and this all the things, now I'm like, no.
You might say no at that point,
But if I do that and I sign up really quick and I can get started and the experience is bad, now I bounce for a different reason. Yeah. So you have to figure out what to optimize for, but I think there's a couple of things that I'm looking at. One is Reddit. People are using Reddit more than ever.
Yeah, answer your questions,
because they want to get recommendations that are not biased by people that don't have any paid interest. Yep. No influencers, right? The other thing is people are asking questions of ChatGPT that are very basic, and then they're going to their peers to ask the situational questions. So what is HubSpot? They're going to go figure that out. Because then no one wants to come and talk to me and say, Ali, I don't know what HubSpot is, because that makes them look stupid. Right. Nobody wants to look stupid. They're using all the AI so that they can look like they know what they're talking about before they come into the game, right?
That's good.
And the other thing is, all of the executives that I know want to track every single digital piece of the journey. And every consumer that I know wants all of their journey private.
Right.
So the crossover of that means we're still going to have this constant battle of, can I see all the things and which one is contributing to the conversion? Yeah. And we still have only half the story, and I don't think we're ever going to have the full story because it's a push and pull between both sides. Yep. So those are the large trends we're seeing, and then data and the ability to actually, have accountability across teams with systems is definitely part of that.
Yeah. So thanks, Ali, for showing me around. I really appreciate it. And welcome to Prairie Founders Club.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Prairie Founders Club and join the community, you can find us at prairiefoundersclub.com.